Welcome to the show where tattoos meets badass eats and boozy drinks. I'm your host, Daniel Verhagen. To all my friends, family, and foes, because we all know they're watching, welcome to Tatted in the Kitchen. What's up, folks? On this very fine evening, we're doing shrooms. Not those kinds of shrooms. Well, not tonight. But we are making stuffed mushrooms. So this is in my Tatted in the Kitchen cookbook. If you haven't picked that up already, please do so. Link in bio, link in description, wherever you're seeing this video. So we're gonna start off with it, and I halved the recipe because the recipe is 2 to 4 servings. It's just me. So I've kind of somewhat halved it. So we got our Cremini mushrooms here. These are great for stuffing. They're just made for stuffing. So we've got this. What we're gonna do first, we're gonna take out the stems in each of them, just because we need to be able to stuff them. And a lot of people sometimes when they're stuffing shrooms or mushrooms, I'll call them shrooms, mushrooms, it's interchangeable. As long as you know the type that I'm talking about. A lot of people will throw the stems out if they're stuffing them, and what I do is actually you should use them in the stuffing mixture. It adds, especially if you do like mushrooms like I do, it adds just an added mushroom flavor. So we're going to take those out. We are going to dice those up. In the meantime, we are going to fry these in a shallow saucepan. So I'm going to get that. And the recipe calls, we're gonna saute these in a tablespoon of butter. We did half the recipe, but I do like butter, so I'm just gonna use about a full tablespoon. Again, Tatted in the Kitchen, we're not too organized, we're not too accurate. You know, we like to have fun, like to live on the edge a little bit. So, start that off on medium heat just to melt the butter there. That's all we need for butter. And then, I should mention, we need the oven at 375. So that's been preheating. I didn't want to make you wait for that. So I'm just going to finish up dicing these stems. All right. Now that we've got that, now we've got the mushroom dice. We're going to dice up the other part of the filler for our mushrooms, which is what we're making right now. We're going to use this one shallot. I believe the recipe calls for 2. I love shallots, though. They do have that nice onion flavor. Oops, this is heated up. We don't want that to. You can see that in there. We don't want to brown the butter. We just want to melt it, right? So I like to get it to a nice heat, and then we'll just turn the heat down just to get it to a simmer. As I was saying, shallots are great. Just a bit of a lighter flavor than an onion, but very similar flavor, and that's why I like them, because you can use them in a dish. Oops, don't want to get the ends. The ends are not great. And as I was saying, it just provides a lighter flavor, especially in a dish like, let's say, it is flavor forward in another way. So stuffed mushrooms are going to be very mushroom forward. And you don't want to overpower that. You don't want to make it something that's more onion forward, because it should be mushroom forward. They're stuffed mushrooms, not stuffed onions. That'd be gross. Anyways, so we're gonna finish dicing this last part of the shallot up. So we've got our mushroom stems diced up. We've got our one shallot diced up. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add this to the pan, and we're gonna start sauteing this. So keep in mind with this pan, as we're sauteing the mushroom stems with the shallot, you want to keep in mind that as we're doing that, you can see it here. We don't want to fully cook them through. We don't want them to get soggy, because at the end of it, we are gonna still put the mushrooms in the oven, as I said, at 375. So what we want to do is we want to get these nice and covered. You want to give them a little color. You want to smell the aroma from the mushroom stems and the shallots, but you don't want to cook them all the way through, because after we put them in the oven, if they're already cooked through, they're gonna become soggy, and that's really gross. I know if anybody has ever had stuffed mushrooms where they are soggy, they're a little overcooked. The ingredients are overcooked. It's never a pleasant experience. So we want to prevent that. So we're gonna cook that for 5 minutes. 7:09 right now. Take them out at, I think it's been about a minute. We'll take them out at 7:13, take them out, sorry. they will finish kind of their first initial sauteing phase, let's call it. And then afterwards, we're gonna add in for another 2 minutes, we're gonna crush up about, say about a tablespoon of walnuts. And this is actually gonna go in, we're gonna, once that is done cooking or sauteing for 5 minutes at 713, we're gonna add the other ingredients in, which is the shallots, about a teaspoon of diced parsley. And if you want, you can add thyme. I'm not going to for this dish, I'm just not feeling the thyme. I had a for lunch, I had a pretty thyme-forward steak in Vancouver, so it was, I'm gonna stay away from the thyme tonight. But anyways, we got parsley, walnut, and now I'm just dicing up the half clove of garlic. Thank you for waiting while I diced up that garlic. I really appreciate it. Now what we're gonna do, we are gonna take this to, and the recipe does call for using a food processor. I'm not gonna get my food processor out. I'm just gonna dice up everything together just to give it a fine mixture. And this is really what's gonna add the flavor to the filling that we're currently sauteing right now, which is the onions, or the shallots, sorry, and the mushroom stems. So although I said 7:13, we're about 2 minutes in, we're starting to get some color. You can really start to smell the mushrooms, the shallots. I'm actually gonna throw these in right now. So we've got our walnuts, our garlic, half garlic clove, and parsley. Throw that all in there. And we will mix this up. And as I said, we're gonna saute this mixture for about another 2 minutes now that we've added those ingredients. That's really gonna provide just more of an additional flavor because we're not using a lot of spices for this dish. Right now sauteing, we've got all the makings of a great mixture for our stuffed mushrooms. So we're gonna get a bowl. As I said, I don't have a food processor with me out, I should say. I do have one that's packed away in the cupboard. I don't want to dig it out. So these are done, I would say now, cooking away. They've sauteed nicely. So we're gonna bring this out. And normally what you would do, but I've diced this pretty finely, so we're not gonna worry about using the food processor today. I'm gonna take this out of the pan. Set that aside. And now we are gonna add we're gonna do, recipe calls for 2 tablespoons. We'll do 1 tablespoon of sherry vinegar. Tablespoon. Again, this isn't sherry vinegar, this is raspberry flavored red wine vinegar. Just provides an added really good flavor. It's just what I had access to, and it's a pretty good supplement for that. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna mix this up. You can just use a general spoon. If anybody's seen How You Met Your Mother, general spoon. So we're gonna mix that up. You can see it nicely. We've got some great color here. And super simple. We are, what we're gonna do now that we have these almost ready, we're gonna take a small mixing bowl like this. We're gonna throw our mushrooms in now that we're ready to pack them. And just to help the cooking process, we're gonna add a little bit of oil. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You can use just extra virgin olive oil. Doesn't have to be a high flash point oil. We're just gonna use this so that it helps them brown up in the oven. As I said, I did half the recipe, so I did add just 1 tablespoon, but we'll see how this covers them up. Again, we don't wanna make them too soggy, right? Add a little bit more. You just wanna make sure that they're covered, right? Covered with a thin layer of oil. You can kind of freehand it there if you'd like I did. Yeah. And then those are all nice and covered with oil. Again, you don't want to overcoat them. So we've got those all mixed up. We've got them covered. So now we're going to transfer them to our baking dish, or baking pan, I should say. And I would recommend, move this out of the way. I would recommend using parchment paper over aluminum foil unless you're cooking at a very high heat. I love parchment paper. I discovered it way too late in life, to be honest. So we've got those there. We've got our mushrooms, and then we're just gonna pack them. Okay, now that we've got those packed, I'm gonna set this aside. Now we are going to sprinkle on top. We've got some Panko breadcrumbs here, which are gonna be great. Gonna provide just with the, we're gonna use the Parmesan cheese and the Panko breadcrumbs just to give it a little topping, a little crunch, a little extra flavor. Use this, so we'll just pack these on top. You can just sprinkle them on. You can be pretty generous. It's not gonna matter if they fall off. They'll just get cooked on the pan. And the heat, we're not gonna be cooking them for too long, then it'll be a hazard if they do fall off on the pan. Again, it's just breadcrumbs. We have, so we've got those covered now with our Panko breadcrumbs. And now it's time for the Parmesan. This is just grated Parmesan. You're gonna just do a light sprinkle on each mushroom. Again, I would say I have maybe like a 1/4 cup grated Parmesan. You wanna try and keep it as fine as possible just because you don't wanna really, you wanna end up with like clumps of cheese on top of the mushrooms because that's also gonna add to, it's gonna add liquid to the mushrooms as well, which we wanna try and minimize, right? Just so we don't get those soggy stuffed mushrooms, which we don't like. If anybody has ever had those, it's not a pleasant experience. So we've preheated the oven to 375. We're gonna stick these in there. So I do have a wide cooking range in the cookbook. It's 10 to 20 minutes. You can just see, kind of judge them depending on how you like them. I don't like mine too soggy. I actually like the mushrooms to remain a little bit raw. So I'm probably gonna stay on the 10 minutes to 12 minutes side of that range. But it's totally up to you. If you like more wet or soggy stuffed mushrooms, then you might want to go towards the end there at the 20-minute mark. So we'll stick these in, and we'll come back when they're ready in about 10 to 12 minutes. See you soon. It is shroom time. Again, not those kind of shrooms. Not tonight. It's a school night. So, as I said, these mushrooms are ready. We are going to stop the oven. We're going to stop the timer. And we're gonna pull them out. So my oven runs pretty hot, so they were in there for about 10 minutes, I would say, 10 to 12. We got them here. Don't worry, I'm gonna give you that nice close-up. Can't leave you without that. Grab some tongs. These are some hot little cookies. Some hot little mushroom flavored cookies. Doesn't sound too appetizing. Wait, I promise. Oops. That's fine. It up after. I'm just eating for myself. And no recipe is complete without a close-up.